I'm Will, I'm the baldbookgeek, and this is a rather large amount of books. Look at them! So many books, so little time. This is formally the last wrap-up of 2018, and it's also a wrap-up of 2018. It's my favourite books, the best books I've read this year, and I was going to do like a top 5 or a top 10 like I've done before, and it was just too hard. So, hello. The only rule to this are books that are first reads. They can't be rereads. They necessarily haven't come out this year. So, where do we start? Let's start with the top, shall we? And we're going to watch all of these fall down. The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. I adore this book. It's literary fiction. It's about, for want of the best word, set in the 17th century. I had the great pleasure of meeting the writer. It's fantastically written. And it's about one of those weird monkey fish mummy things that they used to pretend were mermaids in freak shows. And, yeah, just a fantastic read. Really strong book. And I'm just fantastic. Beautiful literary fiction. If you have not read this, I wholeheartedly recommend. It's warm, it's rich, it's brilliant, and it's just this spellbinding story of people set against some very bizarre stuff going on. Smiling Man by Joseph Knox. I rate his first novel, Sirens, was also in my, I think either last year, year before, maybe? Anyway, fantastic writer. He's a crime writer. It's set in Manchester. He writes these dysfunctional characters and he flips the narrative on its head. It's not your typical crime fodder. There is something about his work that really is spectacular and moody and just nice to have this sort of Manchester set, dark, brooding crime noir. The Oyster Thief. Now, this was sent to me by the publisher. It's a fantasy novel. It's 2 parallel storylines. One is a mermaid, one is a human. It's their interlinking story. It's fantasy, as I said. I love her writing. I love her voice as a writer. I think this is her first novel in fiction. And you just have these, again, it's got all those things that make a fantasy novel work for me. There was a few sort of nasty comments about this online, but actually, I loved it. I don't see why people hated it so much, but there we go. I think some people weren't quite ready. A lot of the negative stuff for this book came from sort of the YA readers rather than the adult fiction. This is not YA, it's adult fiction. Maybe it was just a little too complicated for them. Harley Quinn, Mad Love. What can I say? This story has been told thousands of times before, and I was very hesitant about reading this because I've been bit in the bum with those DC Icon series. That's like Catwoman and Batman. That Catwoman book was horrible, but I don't like Sarah J Maas at all. She can't write for shit. But this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. It kind of borrows elements of different versions of the story, but in the best way possible. And it merges them into this very twisted and dark. Harley Quinn and Joker are not relationship goals, believe me. I feel quite sorry for her in this one. The Living. Now, anyone who doesn't know, Warm Bodies is a book, and it's also a series. This is the final book in the Warm Bodies series. Bloody hell, it does not disappoint. It's funny, it's got his dry wit, it's quite dark, and his cynicism echoes through, and just a really good, fantastic post-apocalyptic novel that flips the zombie notion and narrative on its head. This Is What Happens. This was another Derby Book Festival book. I picked it up. I also got it signed. We attended a talk at Derby Waterstones by the writer, and I got his other book, but this book was stronger for me. This was a far, far stronger book. Mick Herron is a fantastic crime writer anyway, and this is not quite like any crime novel I've ever read. So, meddling kids. Imagine if Stranger Things the makers of Stranger Things did ScoobyDoo. That's this novel. It's really, really well written. It's very funny. It starts in the 70s and it's their sort of, them and their dog and the creepy old guy with a mask on. And then it kind of goes to the 90s. There's lots of nostalgia in this, but it's brilliantly funny and dark. And Netflix, turn this into a TV series, please. It's fantastic. The Order of Nature. This is an LGBTQ book. It's a fantastic novel. It follows two people in an environment where their love is illegal. It's set in Gambia, and being gay is illegal in Gambia. And it's a fantastic, brilliant, very human novel. And I was very lucky to get sent a copy of this by the writer, and definitely one to look for. Dry. Basically, it's set in California and all the water runs out. And it's terrifying because you could imagine it happening. Maybe not to this extreme, but it's terrifying. And for a YA novel, it's brilliantly written and very interesting and very dark. It almost breaks that mould, but it is simplistic reading. You can read through this in a day. I did, but it's very good. Breast Guide to the Occult. This is a fantastic little book. It's just family curses, a little bit of magical realism. I'm trying not to give too much away about these, because if I say too much about these books, it kind of ruins it, I think. It's just really intriguing. That's the word for it. It's an intriguing book, and it keeps you reading, and the characters and what's going on and the mysteries surrounding them. Oh no, I was wrong. There is another YA one in this list. Spare and Found Parts. Almost think cyborgs, think dystopian, think island, set in Ireland. Very interesting book. I read it at the start of the year. I rated it extremely highly. It's just this really interesting take on that narrative, and really, it's fascinating. That's the word for it. I don't think it's the best written book on the planet, and in hindsight I think the writing is actually probably its weakest thing, but it's the story and character building that's really enjoyable. Out. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the writer's name because I cannot pronounce Japanese. I love Japanese crime fiction, and basically that's what this is. Think Girl with the Dragon Tattoo type darkness and intensity and notion set against Japan, and it's absolutely fantastic. Tomorrow. I love this book. It's about an immortal dog who's looking for his master. It spans 200 odd years, and it's brilliantly written. It's absolutely charming. It's heartbreaking. It's rather sweet, and I just think this is one of those books you need to read. If you're a dog lover, that book will echo through. Melmoth by Sarah Perry. I love Sarah Perry. I think she's a fantastic writer, and this is Melmoth. Melmoth is coming. It's dark, it's gothic, it's punchy, it's spooky, it's quite scary. This book gave me nightmares, by the way, and it's just a fantastic, fantastic read. And yes, it's signed as well. So do check out Sarah Perry. Essex Serpent, also by her, is fantastic. Strange Ink. Washed up journalist starts waking up with tattoos all over him. They progressively grow and more appear, and it's his descent into chaos. And oh my god, the publisher even put a temporary tattoo in with the book, which I thought was really cool. Fantastic read, really strong, and just absolutely terrifying in parts. I mean, it's very, very psychological, very, very intense. The War in the Dark. Cold War, magical realism, demons, and yeah, it's just this sort of supernatural Cold War novel. It's fantastically written. I really enjoy. I remember just being entranced by this, and I basically read it cover to cover in a day. It's very easy reading, but it's you follow a demon hunter, and it's just fantastic. Tusk. This is an indie published novel. He's a fantastic science fiction writer. A friend got me this at Norcon, which is a Comic-Con type event in Norwich. And I was a bit hesitant, and I read it, and I fell in love. It's what science fiction should be to me. It ticks all those boxes, and you have this very intense storyline with lots of interesting characters, and you're just pulled into this world. The world building, by the way, the world's building in this is off the chart. Surface Breaks. This was marketed as YA. It's a retelling of The Little Mermaid, and it shouldn't have been marketed as YA. It really should never have been marketed as YA. I love this book. I love The Little Mermaid as a story, but this book is inappropriate for 13 and 14-year-olds. Just given what goes on, I wouldn't be comfortable with a 13-year-old reading this book. There's lots of sexual violence, but it's absolutely phenomenal. It's beautifully written. It's quite heartbreaking as well, but it flips The Little Mermaid on its head beautifully. The Kishi, another indie published book. This is a fantasy novel based on African legend about Shapeshifter. He is a fantastic writer, someone I've got to know through Twitter, and we chat often, and I just fell in love with his work, and I can't wait for more from him. He's got a new book coming out soon. This is unlike anything I've ever read, and it's fantastic, so do check out the Kishi. They are my favourite books, best books of 2018. 2018 has been a fantastic year. What's your favourites? Have you read any of these? Please comment, like and subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.